can expect almost MER to go up or down, the opposite of consumer price index, in almost a proportional manner. And that's what we did in looking at the correlation, is to say that there's a pretty good correlation between them.
Yeah. This is absolutely insane, all the way down to the actual Pearson correlation coefficient. All right, everyone, welcome back. My name is Rekuc from Common Thread Collective, and I'm here with a very special guest today, our in-house e-commerce data analyst. Get out a pencil, get out a pen and paper, have up Notion, Notes, Apple Notes, whatever you do, your phone, because this is going to be an extremely valuable session. This guy, I think this is the first time we've had you on here, right?
Yeah, it is, Nick.
Okay, so we've got Steve. Go ahead and give your introduction. Kind of tell people what you do here at Common Thread Collective.
Yeah, so I'm an e-commerce data analyst, taking a look at all the e-commerce data as well as some macroeconomic data, and seeing if I can draw out any insights, conclusions, and anything to help our clients and our teams provide better service.
We call him our in-house data guru. I mean, he's whipping up charts, whipping up correlations, and that's the whole intention with this video here, is actually being able to show you some of the correlations that Steve has been able to find along with our team, some data that you don't want to miss out on.
Tony messaged me in Slack. He noticed that gas prices were going up as MER was going down.
Interesting.
So he saw kind of this mental correlation of, wait a minute, can we chart these together? Can we plot them and see how they look? And so that brought us into a little bit more of a look at different macroeconomic data. And gas prices are just one component of the consumer price index. So I decided to look at the consumer price index, which covers all of commerce and not just gas prices. And take a look at how that might chart versus MER, marketing efficiency ratio. I thought the same thing as Tony, because we all noticed in DTC as prices were going up as inflation was hitting, that some brands were struggling a little more. So we wanted to, I've always thought there would be somewhat of a correlation there, as well as probably a correlation to some other macroeconomic factors. So it seemed really like a good investigation. Like, all right, let's see how closely these are tied.
What part of this should people be paying attention to?
As you can see, MER kind of does the opposite of consumer price index. When things become more expensive, you have more inflation, people tend not to buy as much, at least not as much for the same amount of ad spend. You have to fight a little bit harder to get the same sort of sales.
So you were able to figure out, okay, when consumer price index is going up, you're going to have to fight harder to get the same MER that you were getting before.
Yeah. There's brands that can buck that trend, and there are times where that trend kind of doesn't hold as strongly. You can expect almost MER to go up or down, the opposite of consumer price index, in almost a proportional manner. And that's what we did in looking at the correlation, is to say that there's a pretty good correlation between them.
So this is almost validating a lot of, I know on Twitter, D2C Twitter, people are, oh, I think this is happening. I think this is happening. Well, we have the data. There's actually a really high correlation between the two of these.
Yeah, because people will be talking about stock prices or consumer price index, inflation, gas prices. Like, okay, let's actually look at this mathematically to prove it out. Like, let's see if there is a correlation.
So now we've kind of figured out, all right, CPI goes up, MER goes down in this proportional amount. It's in a pretty reliable manner, right? So
yeah.
Were there any other macroeconomic factors that you were looking at MER could possibly also be correlated with?
We found an even stronger correlation, a 0.888 Pearson correlation coefficient between MER and consumer confidence index.
You found an even stronger correlation. So you had consumer price index. You were like, okay, this is reported on a monthly basis, and you felt like this wasn't, what was it missing, or what made you take it to this next macroeconomic factor? Why did you feel the need to even go further?
Because consumer price can be related to whether someone's confident in purchasing, but it's a component of that confidence in purchasing. So consumer confidence index is normally what I would think of being, at least intuitively, more closely tied to how easy it is to sell product to consumers.
Mm. Yeah, so like consumer price index could go up, but people still feel confident
Yeah.
spending money. So you're
Yep.
like, okay, let's get MER versus consumer confidence index. And what did you guys end up finding?
With one being the maximum correlation coefficient, 0.888 is real good.
Wow. So that's like an 88%, right? About.
Yeah, kind of. That's one way of looking at it. Yes. On the
Wow.
score. Yeah, it's good. We're probably able to figure out how much MER is going to go up or down. It's going to be proportional to that consumer confidence index.
This is absolutely insane. So I think for people who are watching this, who are like, okay, what do I do with this data? What is this? I think the first thing we have to get is that there is data. This is great for taking to the board, taking to executives, taking to your manager, this is the data we're sharing with our clients or we're using to inform projections and things like that. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
very first thing is getting that this is data. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
our opinion. You guys can come to your own conclusions, but this is the data that we found.
Yeah.
This is absolutely insane, all the way down to the actual Pearson correlation coefficient.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And you said this is over the last 2 years, right?
Correct.
So
Since September 2020 is when I ran that correlation coefficient for consumer confidence index.
we always talk, even before this, before we started recording, all about practicality. Like, all right, so what? Even at CTC, it's what, so what, now what? What? Okay, this is awesome data, but what do people do to use this data? How can people actually use this to help their everyday business goals?
Right. Yeah. So since there is a proportionality there, you can kind of get an idea of what to expect from MER, which
Mm,
means how much you'll have to spend in marketing in order to get the same amount of sales, and then it
mm,
allows you to anticipate perhaps what level of inventory you want to have, as well as what amount of hiring you can do for a growing business. How much growth you can expect. So there's a lot. It gives you an idea of what's ahead. You kind of get an idea the territory, know what you're up against over the next month potentially, um, and you're making good data-backed decisions, and can use data as a good argument in any sort of business roundtable sense. Like when you have to report to managers or report to people higher up, you have the knowledge and data behind you.
I love the way you put that. I just imagined, like, you know, showing up somewhere and having these people who are on your side, who are like, yep, what they're saying is backed. I agree with them. Each of these data points is like a person on your side, like, hey, yeah, what they're saying is true. I think over the last year, um, you've just been able to do some phenomenal things, and I'm just excited for the future. Speaking of the future, kind of what's next? What are you trying to do? You have all this data. We're going to give people away at the end of here to get data like this and stay in the know and stay on the pulse of the data. But what are you thinking? What do you want to do now that you have this?
Well, the next thought that comes to mind when you find a good correlation is, wait a minute, uh, perhaps I can build a model. Perhaps we can
Mm,
use consumer confidence index, consumer price index, um, the current month marketing efficiency ratio, and even historic marketing efficiency ratio for the upcoming month, and do a prediction for MER for the
mm.
upcoming month. If we can take all that and combine them together, because if they're all correlated fairly well, then they could lead to perhaps a really good model of what MER is going to be.
I tend to struggle getting into numbers, but I think what you've done here is made it very simple, clear, and showed the value proposition of the data you're finding. And I'm excited for that next frontier. So if you're someone who loves data, if you're someone who loves practical data, not unnecessary kind of BS that's really not that much of a value add, then you can check the links in the description. We have a D2C index. That's where we're actually letting people get insight into this data. And as Steve and the team are developing new frontiers, new predictive things that we're able to find, new insights. We even did a report on Facebook under reporting revenue just over the weekend. Please check out the links in the description to get on our D2C index, or at the very least, get on our free data newsletter. And also for our existing clients, you know that this is the data we're using, data like this, to inform the decisions we're making in ad accounts, email strategies, projections. So if you're looking for a growth partner, someone who's looking at it holistically, not just how's this Facebook ad, not just how is this, did this ad get a click? Actually looking at the performance of the business with data-backed decisions, then consider checking out the Hire Us form. Send us a message, get a free audit, and let us see if we can help you out. Steve, thanks again for being here, man. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to having you back on here really soon.
Oh, thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure.